Welcome to JWL Sports, where we review all the best sports clips from around the world. Now you're probably wondering, why should I watch over here instead of any of the other channels? And that's because over there, they don't care about what you have to say. They say this all the time, they talk down to us, they think we're just a bunch of clowns on YouTube, Twitter. But I think it's the opposite. I think we know exactly what we're talking about. So I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're watching a clip of First Things First, talking about the Super Bowl, of course, and whether or not, kind of like, what's kind of more devastating, a 49ers loss or a Chiefs loss, as well as, what does this do for each team, essentially. I haven't watched this clip yet. I just, saw what the, bottom said when I was queuing it up. So I'm really curious what they say. I mean, my initial thoughts right now is it's more crushing for the 49ers to lose because they'd already been there. They pretty much almost had that Super Bowl, but then they ended up losing. And then their whole thing is that Garoppolo isn't good enough, and that Purdy is better, and that Purdy can get you over the hump. And so now that you have Purdy, and if they lose, I think that's just crushing. Shanahan losing multiple Super Bowls, Debo, Kittle, those players. It's just like, and then you start to think like, oh my God, in order for you to win again, or to get you in order for you now to have a chance to win at all, you have to get back to the Super Bowl this next year, which is like, again, everything needs to go perfectly. You need everyone to stay healthy again. You need Christian McCaffrey to be healthy, Purdy to be healthy. You need everything. Debo, like everything is always such a fine line between everything going right and everything going wrong. And that's why it's very hard to get back to a Super Bowl. That's why it is impressive of the Chiefs to be able to get back to a Super Bowl. And same thing with the 49ers in terms of just being as good as they have been for the last 5, 6 or so years. And you just... eventually your luck runs out, right? You don't just get to the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl year after year after year. Like eventually you just fizzle away. And so I think it would be way more crushing. Again, the Chiefs, yes, I think ultimately for Patrick Mahomes chasing the GOAT, trying to get to 7, but he still can lose. He doesn't need to get all of them right now. So I just don't think it would be devastating. Obviously he's going to be devastated, but it's a lot harder to be devastated when you already have the $500 million contract and all the commercials all over, and you have, obviously multiple rings. Like you're already sleeping on a bed of gold. So it's just hard to really be crushed. Now, the one thing that I'll say is that if you lose, it does take a little bit of the air out of the balloon for all the commercials, though, because what makes them so great is that, like, we're the champs, we're the best, we're the great. You see Kelsey, you see all these people, but now if you lose, it's like, well, you're not the best. You're not the top of the league right now. You didn't have technically a great season. Yeah, you made it to the Super Bowl, but this wasn't one of your better years. Kelsey, this was near one of his worst careers. And same thing with Patrick Mahomes, technically, which are still pretty good, obviously, but it's still theoretically, one of their lower years of their careers, and they didn't win a Super Bowl. And so for those players, just making a Super Bowl is not actually, that doesn't mean anything. Really, I mean, it really doesn't. It's really just like, how many rings do you have? They never really talk about, well, someone has 3 rings, but they went to 8 Super Bowls. They don't really talk about that in football. They only do that in basketball with regards to LeBron James because he has lost so much. And they highlight it with Michael Jordan because he obviously went 6 for 6. So at this point, if you're Mahomes, it's just winning. You got to just win the Super Bowl. Like, it's not a matter of, like, a loss doesn't necessarily, it just starts to paint a different picture, I guess, is what I'm ultimately trying to say.
That's choreographing Usher's halftime performance. Not really choreographing, to be honest with you. I wasn't working on the dances per se, but I was going through the full catalog.
Trying to figure out the set. Wilds lost so much money betting on the Patriots this year. He's going to have to win it back on betting on the first song for Usher.
I like that DJ song. What?
He wanted to let y'all know I'm about it.
Yeah,
I played this game too.
I broke my collarbone.
Way back in the day. That's what he was saying.
I broke my fibula. Who would a loss be more heartbreaking for, the 49ers or the Chiefs?
I'm really curious where Brew's going to land on this. I think it's unequivocal, and it's San Francisco. They've been banging on
me and Nick agree.
the door for years. More on that in a moment. They've been favored in every game they have played this season. They have baby Drew Brees at quarterback, I've been told. They are the favorites in this game, and the window at some point does close. Wilds, what am I?
A non-playable character in Red Dead Redemption. Like a bartender.
The way you asked that was crazy. What am I?
What am I? A
That could have been
sports
anything you
historian
could have said.
is
Oh,
what I
he
am.
wasn't going to say that.
The-
He
never
never
talked
was
about
going to
it.
say that.
Well, okay, well, I thought
Mr. Consistency,
when I
he
said,
couldn't have said
no,
that.
that's what they call me,
Oh,
but I
okay,
am a
okay.
sports historian. It's literally what I am. Brew is as well. So here's the reason I mentioned it. That was a great pull, though, NBC on Red Dead Redemption. Vikings of the 70s, Broncos of the 80s,
Yep.
Bills of the 90s, mix in teams with this many
Eagles,
conference
the
championship
Zeros.
games and didn't even make a Super Bowl, the Rams of the 70s and the Eagles of the 2000s. Those are the teams that have had this type of postseason success without breaking through. And only one team ever has had this type of postseason success without breaking through and then broke through. And that was John Madden's Raiders. Every other one of those, you can say the Broncos did, but they
but
didn't. They
it was a
changed coaches, and it was
right.
10 years later. That team never broke through. And so those teams are considered some of the most tragic in NFL history. The Purple People Eater Vikings, the Rams with those amazing defenses. We talk about Elway. We think about him differently now than how we thought about him throughout the first 15 years of his career. So if the Niners don't do it now, when they're the Super Bowl favorite, when they've been favored all year, when they are healthy, I know they don't have Hufanga, but they haven't had him for 2 months.
Yeah,
they're as healthy as any team can be. This is not the type of loss you get over. So I would say for the Niners, without question, it's them.
I totally agree.
I totally agree, obviously, as I said at the top. The only thing that I'll add is that if you lose to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, it's still heartbreaking and it's frustrating, but it's more like frustrating at the universe, honestly. You know, you're more just like, are you kidding me? Like, both times we make it to the Super Bowl and we got to go up against the GOAT. You know, it's like how you got to feel when you're going up against Tom Brady and you're just like, are you kidding me? And again, the Eagles experienced that back in, 2004. I forget what the year was when they finally made the Super Bowl. And, you know, they lost to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And that was crushing. But years later, especially years later, like literally like well over a decade later, when you're really reflecting on that, like as an Eagles fan, you're like, all right, we definitely could have won, and you're bummed that you didn't, especially because you could point to very specific things that happened, like a fumble into the end zone that ended up being a touchback and stuff like that. And you're just like, oh my God, if only that didn't happen. But at the end of the day, you're still like, all right, well, you lost to Tom Brady, right? You didn't lose to some random person, random team that just was happy to be there. It was like, okay, we lost to Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. That's like hardly the worst team to lose against. But at the same time, when then the Eagles went back to the Super Bowl and then beat the Patriots and Tom Brady, that made it really sweeter. Seriously. I mean, it made it so much more of an amazing victory because you were like, that's right. There was some redemption feeling, but also like, that's right. We just beat the GOAT, Tom Brady. And this was before Patrick Mahomes was really anything. And it was like, we beat, you know, the unquestioned GOAT, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. We beat you. Yes, not only did we beat you, but we like outdueled you in one of the most exciting, highest scoring games ever, you know, and it was just amazing. And so that was a really great feeling. And so not only would it be heartbreaking for the 49ers to lose because of it would just be heartbreaking in general, but now it's also heartbreaking when you think about how amazing the victory would be and how high you would be off of that. And again, it was a little bit different with the Eagles because it was the first time they won a Super Bowl. So obviously that made it extra intense. The 49ers have won, although obviously not recently, relatively speaking. And so it is one of those things where it's like the build up for the 49ers. The 49ers have been trying to do this build up. They're waiting to just explode. And then if they lose, that's what kind of just makes it all the more heartbreaking, right? It's kind of like getting broken up with by a girl or, you know, a partner in general. It's like, what's worse, being broken up with by just someone that you kind of like hooked up with a few times and she's like, I don't want to be with you anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. That's sad. And maybe if you really liked her, that could be heartbreaking. But now what if it's someone who you were truly in love with, someone who you could see us getting married, you getting married to and putting a life with and having children with, and then they break up with you? That's way more heartbreaking, because on the other side of that is an entire life. That's what waits for the 49ers. So I think it's a lot more heartbreaking than you even realize when you think of all the good and amazingness that can happen with the victory.
I totally agree. I thought you might say Chiefs, but look, the Chiefs, and I guess you thought they'd be here, but they didn't have a good regular season. For them, it wasn't even good. It certainly wasn't great. For their standards, it probably wasn't even good. And I think the greater your regular season, the greater the disappointment if you don't get to the Super Bowl and win it. Like who's more, probably the most disappointing team right now is the Ravens. Because they had such a great regular season, even though Buffalo's disappointed Miami, it's the Ravens, right? Yes. So I think it's clearly the Niners.
And Detroit close because they were up so much in the NFC title game.
And they had a great regular season too. But yeah, and look, Kyle Shanahan, for him, I mean, he already has that tag of a guy that can't win the big game. All right. And it's happened not just in the Super Bowl when he was with Atlanta as the OC, up 28-3 on your Patriots, and then against the Chiefs when he's up 10, they give up, 21 points in the last 6 minutes to lose that game. It also happened when the Rams won the Super Bowl. They were up 10 heading into the fourth quarter, 17-7. So if he loses this game, even though oddly the Niners are favorite, it seems like most pundits are picking the Chiefs. Even though a lot of people think the Chiefs should win, you don't bet against Mahomes. This will be a huge disappointment and continue that image or reputation for Kyle Shanahan. And then and also, Nick, like they are a stacked team. Yes. And at some point, if Purdy eventually gets paid, like you're not going to be able to have a team that's stacked going forward.
That's what I think.
So if you don't get it done now,
well, and that's the thing too, where if Purdy really proves to be an amazing quarterback or a really great quarterback, just even a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, whether you think he is now or not, like let's say he just becomes a bona fide, every person on TV just agrees, yeah, he's definitely top 10, right? And then it's just a matter of like where you want to put him. Then not winning in this situation would be devastating, because it's like you have to win right now. You're paying him effectively nothing, and you have to win now because you're going to have to pay him, and then you're going to not be able to have a stacked of a team. And then again, what does it say about you? You have a stacked team. You have Purdy being Purdy and great. And it's like, so then win. People no longer then, if Purdy ends up becoming a bona fide top 10, top 5 quarterback, I don't think that they'll necessarily point to his youth if they don't win this, this Super Bowl. They would try to point fingers more at Shanahan then. They would be like, he was great. Shanahan wasn't utilizing him right. Shanahan was keeping a leash on him. Do you see how amazing of a passer he is now? Why did he only throw the ball 20 times in the Super Bowl? Like whatever the case may be, or let's say he turns into being a lot more mobile of a quarterback. They would say, what the heck? Why did Shanahan not let him run? Why did it take him until the NFC Championship game of the second year to finally, be able to be mobile? Again, there's just all these other narratives that could be crafted. So I think then it would fall on Shanahan. Not saying that that's necessarily correct, but I could just see those narratives being crafted. But as I said in the previous video, this kind of target on Shanahan's back, as being, can't win the big game, it's just a stupid, silly target, because again, Andy Reid technically had that label, and it took Andy Reid 19 years and Patrick Mahomes to win a Super Bowl, and now he's in consideration to be the best coach in the NFL history, and is definitely seen as the best coach in the NFL right now, at the very least. And so it's just so, like, the way how you're labeled right now by just kind of random people or fans or people that maybe are just too harsh of critics, like, I don't know how much that matters, honestly, because again, if you don't respect Shanahan and think he's amazing and great, and if you think that a coach can consistently get you to an NFC Championship game or a Super Bowl, but they just haven't won because they're losing against other great teams, and that means now you can't win the big game, I disagree with that analysis. It's just not accurate. It just because you haven't won doesn't mean that you can't win. And Shanahan has proven to be good enough that he can win. Unfortunately, he just hasn't won. Is it really his fault that Garoppolo couldn't, make that throw in the Super Bowl? Is it really his fault that Purdy got injured in the NFC Championship game? I mean, and if you want to blame him for the Falcons game with the 49er, or with the Falcons game with Matt Ryan, like, I guess so. I guess so. I mean, that's maybe an argument, but that was also then his first time there. So, like, you kind of got to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure Andy Reid was outcoached in the Super Bowl against Bill Belichick. It was his first time, and I'm sure Andy Reid, I don't really remember exactly, but I'm sure Andy Reid was outcoached in a handful of NFC Championship games when they lost those years. So I just think, you have to be careful where you put the blame and where you put the credit, honestly. It's never just one side of anything. But that's my thoughts on this. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this one. Who do you think would it be more heartbreaking for a loss in the Super Bowl, the 49ers or the Chiefs? Let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to subscribe, and please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really helps with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.